And so we literally came back from school, climbed on our ponies, and we lived just under the downs. So we used to get on our.
It began with silence. No royal insignia, no golden seal. On a wet London evening, a plain package was slipped through Clarence House's gates. There was no threat, no request for money, and no bizarre fairy tale manufactured by a desperate opportunist. Instead, it contained a single phrase that threatened to destabilize the monarchy. "I am the biological child of King Charles III." Certified DNA findings from a reputable European laboratory were also attached. Clinical, verified, indisputable. For decades, murmurs have surrounded Britain's most renowned family. Illicit encounters, quiet romances, and possible heirs. The majority of those tales have faded into background noise. This time, however, the evidence was not rumor, but rather science. A 99.9% genetic match, not to William or Harry, but directly to King Charles himself. The palace scrambled. Staff were directed to remove communications. Press offices were instructed to avoid queries, and lawyers were secretly recruited, but there was no stopping it. The narrative slipped past closed doors and onto the global scene. Even if the DNA shock wasn't enough, the timing was fatal. Charles was still adjusting to life as monarch, and Camilla, the woman who had worked for decades to be accepted, was already battling to maintain her popularity with the public. The discovery of a hidden son did more than merely shed light on the king's past. It shook Camilla's crown from its very foundation. Because this was not a rumor, this was blood. Camilla's worst nightmare has come true. The modest packet weighed more than centuries of royal procedure. The DNA report was typed, stamped, and signed off by a reputable European lab, not a tabloid gimmick or an overblown claim. Each page screamed credibility. There was no loophole or escape clause. Buckingham Palace had denied for years that Charles had a hidden son, but the test verified it. The palace reacted like it had been struck by lightning. The curtains were drawn tighter. Security briefings were extended. Phones rang with cryptic instructions that had never appeared in writing. Lock it down was the order of the day. Within hours, press officers were directed to ignore all inquiries, no matter how little. Computers were erased, emails were deleted, and private calendars were surreptitiously modified to prevent potential disclosures. But panic always leaves a trace. Whispers spread among aides, drivers, and subordinate personnel. By the time Charles's inner circle attempted to keep the matter quiet, the report had already reached a few high officials who couldn't be ignored. The news was too deadly and combustible to disappear without a trace. The timing made it all the more devastating. After his mother's death, Charles continued to struggle to keep the monarchy stable. His reign had only just begun, and Camilla, still viewed with mistrust by much of the public, was clinging to her frail legitimacy as queen. This discovery was not solely about treachery, it was about surviving. Behind the royal gates, disputes devolved into shouting into shut doors, and Camilla's rage bubbled over someplace. She'd worked her way to this crown, and now, with one letter and one incontrovertible test, everything she had worked so hard to achieve was in jeopardy. The monarchy has previously faced scandals. However, none were engraved in blood. There was another woman in Charles's life long before Diana, and even before Camilla became completely involved. She was not splashed on tabloids or paraded at royal events. She maintained her distance, mingling in the same exclusive circles, but never seeking the spotlight. According to buried stories from servants and diplomats, her name was whispered in the late 1970s. A striking aristocrat with intelligence, calm, and a cutting edge, the palace did not fully trust. Charles, under enormous pressure to marry, sought solace in her prudence. Their affair grew gradually through late-night phone conversations, secret weekends, and whispered rumors of a vacation overseas. Some insiders even claimed that a proposal was considered before the Queen intervened, worrying that she was too independent to be molded into an obedient royal wife. And suddenly, almost overnight, she disappeared from Charles's side. There was no controversy or public fallout, only silence. Silence that, as we now know, may have concealed much more. Even after she withdrew from Charles' public life, whispers persisted. Staff who served tea in quiet corridors claimed to have seen secret notes folded and wrapped in unmarked envelopes. A former servant recalls Charles walking as if he was carrying a secret burden. Even while the palace denied all rumors, silence frequently spoke louder than words. Over time, fragments emerged. A chauffeur recalled driving Charles to a modest residence at night. A footman recalls giving flowers to a woman who was not Camilla or Diana. An archivist who discovered personal letters allegedly lost his job within weeks. Each anecdote looked trivial on its own, but taken together, they presented an image that the palace badly wanted to erase. Camilla, even then, was thought to be uneasy. Jealous by nature, she reportedly warned Charles not to mention the woman's name again. According to sources, when asked if he had fathered a kid before Diana, Charles became pale, as if the remark revived an old wound. The monarchy feeds on control, but rumors are like tiny flaws in a stained glass window that become larger and more difficult to ignore. For decades, this specific rumor lurked in the background, persistent and unnerving, until DNA turned murmurs into proof. His name never appeared in royal documents. There are no images in glossy publications and no formal mentions in history books. Nonetheless, for more than 4 decades, one guy silently led a life that was equal parts privileged and invisible. His name is Sebastian David Kiel. Born in Geneva in 1980, his birth certificate only included his mother's name. There is no father listed and no royal relation acknowledged. From the start, his life was strange. His schooling was funded by a secret trust. He attended premium Swiss schools and, later, a prominent British boarding school, where teachers characterized him as unnervingly mature, polished, and poised, as if he had been raised for the public eye but had purposefully avoided it. There were subtle indications of concealed sponsorship. Regardless, his tuition was always reimbursed. His 18th birthday gift was a premium automobile purchased from an unidentified customer. When he went to London, rent and expenditures appeared to vanish, handled discreetly via accounts linked to mysterious firms. The trail traced back to a law firm that had oversaw the Duchy of Cornwall, Charles's former estate. Coincidence or a quiet guardianship? Finally, there was his face. The strong cheekbones, arched brow, and clear likeness to Charles from his boyhood. He smiled but never denied it. While others in his time sought prominence, Sebastian remained mute. No interviews, no scandals, and no public allegations. Those close to him, however, claimed that he knew all along, that somewhere deep within his identity, a truth too weighty for one man to bear had been waiting for its time. When the crown finally rested on Charles's head, that moment arrived. Rumors can be ignored, whispers may be denied, but blood shows no mercy. For Sebastian, silence was no longer sufficient. Destroyed something inside him. Within months of the coronation, he surreptitiously approached a Swiss private genetic testing service, which is trusted by politicians, billionaires, and even royals. To confirm paternity, both the father and son had to contribute DNA. It seemed inconceivable, but fate has a way of transforming secrets into evidence. According to insiders, a sympathetic former royal employee, a guy who had seen too much and remained silent for too long, smuggled out a strand of Charles's hair, plucked from a travel comb. It was delivered quietly, following a safe chain of custody. Sebastian's own sample was taken under stringent laboratory conditions. The results were devastatingly clear, a 99.97% match. Not near or provocative, but undeniable. Charles was his biological father. Sebastian did not hurry to the press. Instead, he sent a sealed letter directly to Clarence House. Inside came the DNA report, a tiny handwritten statement, and a solitary request. I do not desire fortune. I do not desire titles. I simply want the truth to be acknowledged. Inside the palace, however, the response was one of panic rather than compassion. Attorneys were called in. Crisis managers developed strategies. Camilla, after learning the truth, was no longer the placid queen for the cameras. Behind closed doors, her rage erupted with a ferocity that shook Clarence House, because the scandal had expanded beyond Charles. It was about her crown. Camilla's reaction to seeing the DNA report on her desk was everything from quiet dignity. She detonated. According to royal insiders, the queen consort screamed for about 20 minutes after learning the results. Her voice echoed along the corridors of Clarence House like a hurricane trapped between stone walls. The crystal glass broke against the wall. A maid was seen leaving her chambers in tears. One longtime employee murmured, "I've never seen her like that. She was unhinged." But her wrath was not limited to the affair itself. It was about understanding what the truth meant. Camilla had to work her way up from mistress to queen over decades. She had faced public humiliation, Diana's supporters' rage, and headlines labeling her a homewrecker. She had persevered through it all, eventually taking her place beside Charles. And now, just as the crown had settled, she was staring at evidence that another woman had taken something she couldn't, a kid. Camilla saw it as more than simply betrayal. It was wartime. She requested that the royal attorneys bury the issue, denigrate Sebastian, and threaten to sue any media that printed his name. However, Charles remained uncomfortably silent. He didn't deny the claim. He didn't shout or quarrel. He looked haunted. The stillness irritated her the most. Camilla reportedly accused him of allowing Diana's ghost to ruin them again in a heated discussion. The door slammed so forcefully that the frame shattered. Security personnel were discreetly stationed outside her suite, not to guard her, but to protect others around her. Camilla had survived every scandal previously, but this was different. This was blood, and blood was something she couldn't get rid of. No secret can remain forever, especially when paper trails intersect with palace adversaries. The DNA report, which was intended for private use only, was not kept secret. Someone in the legal community, angered by yet another royal cover-up, surreptitiously disclosed it. Within hours, European sites began reporting rumors of a royal paternity scandal. By the end of the week, it was everywhere. The top-page headlines read, "King Charles' secret son confirmed. DNA bombshell rocks the crown. Camilla's worst nightmare." From confidential laboratory results to the mysterious trust that supported Sebastian's schooling, the story was not treated as supposition, it was a fact, and the public's reaction was fast and unexpectedly compassionate. Instead, they witnessed a dignified man seeking just acknowledgement. He was not demanding crowns or castles, but just the truth. Against Camilla's rage, his humility made him appear even more honorable. For the monarchy, it was disastrous. Centuries of carefully cultivated image crumbled overnight. Social media was flooded with analogies between Sebastian and young Charles. Camilla's meltdown memes circulated quickly, portraying her as crazy and unfit. Hashtags demanding "#acknowledge Sebastian" trended across multiple platforms. Camilla's rage flared within Clarence House as pity for Sebastian swelled. He appeared calmer, while she appeared more chaotic. And in the court of public opinion, looks are more important than protocol. The palace might make as many pronouncements as it wanted, but one thing was certain: the monarchy was no longer combating rumors. It was opposing science, and science does not submit to royal command. While Clarence House trembled with Camilla's rage, another part of the monarchy remained unsettlingly serene. Prince William and Princess Catherine did not smash doors, raise their voices, or scurry to deny. According to sources close to William, he was not caught off guard. As a child, he'd heard faint murmurs of a half-brother, snippets of rumor that drifted around halls and tabloids, but never stuck. Without evidence, it was simple to dismiss. But now that DNA proof was undeniable and the press was circling, William realized the tempest was about more than just Charles. It was about ensuring the monarchy's survival. His strategy involved caution. "We don't smear. We don't intervene. We wait and prepare," he reportedly told advisors. The goal was not to crush Sebastian. It was intended to protect George, Charlotte, and Louis. the monarchy's future. Kate, as always, was his anchor. Behind the palace walls, she reminded William of the importance of remaining composed. Their public appearances were flawless. They smiled at children's charities, spoke cheerfully with communities, and projected stability as pandemonium raged through Clarence House. Privately, Kate was already instructing her media staff to monitor every headline, social media post, and shift in public opinion. The goal is not to quiet the story, but to understand it and stay 2 steps ahead. And what they witnessed was telling. Sympathy skewed toward Sebastian. Camilla's outbursts simply made her appear insecure, whilst Sebastian's quiet dignity portrayed him as a victim. William and Kate were not simply enduring a scandal. They were preparing for history to repeat itself, and this time they would not let quiet tarnish the monarchy's reputation. For decades, it was but a whisper. A rumor circulated behind velvet curtains, dismissed as fiction whenever it ventured to appear. But DNA does not whisper, it shouts. The monarchy can no longer hide behind denials. Sebastian David Kiel exists. He shares Charles's eyes, stance, and voice. He carries scientific proof, not rumors or supposition, with a 99.97% match that leaves no space for excuses. He may never wear a crown, but his mere presence is enough to weaken those who do. Camilla's fury has dominated headlines, with her rants and tantrums portraying her as unstable and desperate. The deeper tale, however, is not about her fury. It's the fissures in the monarchy, a legacy based on silence, secrecy, and meticulous image management has finally been revealed for what it is: frail. For the first time in centuries, the crown's power is being tested by biology rather than politics or battle. Charles's quiet may have been intended for control, but it shouts louder than any denial. He has been haunted and muted, offering no defense. And in that stillness, the public hears only guilt. Sebastian did not request money, privilege, or titles. He merely asked to be acknowledged. And in the court of public opinion, it makes him the moral victor, a once obscured son who now stands taller than those who attempted to erase him. But this chapter cannot be ignored. The truth is out. The crown has been pierced by its worst secret, and no matter what they do, the blood will not wash away. So what do you think? Should Charles confront Sebastian or continue to conceal the truth?